Well, took everything on time, it's about 4:30, so we're gonna get things started. Welcome and thank you for coming. We've got this lovely internship insights panel here for you. A big reason why we're here is because almost every semester, all of us faculty members feel questions about what should I do for an internship? What is out there for careers and for environmental studies? And so while we can't cover all the different avenues that answer might entail, we did put together a small panel that is fairly diverse in a bunch of different experiences. And these students are going to share a little bit about what they were up to this summer for their internships. As far as the formats here, we're going to go do brief presentations from each one of the interns. They put together a very brief 5-minute presentation to share about who they are, where they interned, a little bit about their experience. I'll ask a few questions for the panel, so I've got a few prepared questions for the panel, and then if there's any questions from the audience. Okay. So to begin, I think Molly, you volunteered to go first, is that right?
Volunteer's a good word.
Okay, all right. If you want to head up the controls for the computer.
I can also do it. Yeah.
Okay, that works good.
The first one? Yeah. I'm Molly, and I interned at the Angeles National Forest headquarters over the summer, which is part of the Forest Service. And this is where I worked. That's the office building. You can go on to the next one. I didn't really have a set, my title was a resources intern. I didn't really have a regular day-to-day. It changed every day. I didn't really have a default. I guess my default would be helping with public affairs, just random assignments that they had. But there's a group called the Field Rangers, and they're a group of interns, I guess, but they were focused on education, and also they're kind of being prepped for a job in the Forest Service. And so I got to go with them a couple of times. So one time we got to go to an arboretum and we saw peacocks, which was cool. And then for one of their presentation things, they used some horns from different animals that are on the forest, so I got to clean them, which is actually really cool because they were really old. And the one on the left is a Nelson's bighorn sheep, which is endemic to the forest. And then the middle picture is from this National Night Out event that I got to go to with public affairs and law enforcement and the fire. And I just got to meet different people and help advertise the forest and what they do. It was really interesting. It wasn't my community, but I still got to see people. This was one of my more favorite days. I got to go with with public affairs people, and we went into a very far away part of the forest where people aren't really. And we first went to a zoo and an aquarium and collected some endangered frogs that had been being raised and bred for multiple years. And that was with the USGS. And so we got to go with some people from USGS and go and take really difficult hike and release them into the stream. And I got to be in a podcast as well, which was cool. And a lot of it was recreation too. So I got to do different things. There was a big aspect of that forest specifically is fires. And a fire broke out while I was doing my internship. So I got to experience what it's like when a fire breaks out. And I was out doing something in the forest for something. And then we get back, oh, fire started 20 minutes ago. So then all hands on deck, everyone drops what they're doing and starts. So I got to listen to a radio and take notes that they then use that information and spread it to the public, which was cool to do. And a lot of things just in general, like there's a ski resort in the forest and there's trails and lakes and all sorts of things. And so the forest has a lot of visitors, more visitation than at least most forests in the nation. So it's really cool to see all the different issues that they face with that.
Yeah, since we have such a small group too, if there's any questions specific to Molly's internship, we could just pause now if there's anybody had a question.
Where is Angels National?
It is in Arcadia, California, which is within Los Angeles.
How did you get that position?
I my dad very vaguely knew the supervisor of the forest, didn't know anything about him really, was like, oh, I think I know someone who works for the Forest Service, and gave me his phone number, so I called him, and it turned out he was the head supervisor of the whole forest, so that's how I got to get a job in the headquarters, where it's pretty much all upper management. So it was kind of a who you know, and kind of like, I just happened to have his phone number and was able to call him.
That was one of mine, but I'll say that, we could ask that at the end of this. I think we can move on, if you want to click on to the next one, you know, I think it's. Yep.
All right, so I'm Sam Cray, junior, and I interned at Northbridge Bison. So I was living in Bozeman, Montana, and the ranch was based in Wilsall, Montana. So it was about a 35-mile drive every day for me to get up to the ranch. But yeah, I was working with bison all summer, so it was a pretty cool experience. I wasn't working with your average cows or cattle. So yeah, it was super cool. I was basically right in the middle of the North Bridgers and then the Crazy Mountains as well. So I had some pretty awesome views every day at work. If you want to go to the next slide, yep. So I was a ranch hand and an environmental specialist. So every day was different. A lot of days I was going out and fixing fence. And one of the big things that I did was my boss doesn't spray any herbicides or pesticides on any of the ranch, so all of the weeds had to be hand picked. So I did a lot of weed picking, did a lot of cleanup around the ranch. So my boss has only owned this ranch for 6.5, almost 7 years. So a lot of like the prior owners didn't really take care of the land, so that was a lot of my job as well, was cleaning up that some of those areas that were not really taken care of prior. And then on top of that, I did 4 to 5 different projects based on sustainability. So that's kind of where like the environmental specialist aspect came in, which I was doing a lot of that grunt work, but also was able to do some cool projects that I didn't really know about, and got to learn more about those projects, learn more like how to do them, where they came from, and like why they're being used in Montana. And then the next slide. So some of the things I did a lot with erosion control, because that can be a big problem out in Montana. I mean, it's pretty dry. They get a lot of rain and water, but it comes at one time, and that's right during snow melt and winter runoff. So a lot of times when there's all that runoff and all that snow melt, it comes barreling through the ranch and causes a lot of erosion and a lot of flooding and other things like that. So pictured in like the top left, I basically just built a bunch of one rock dams. And this is to help kind of slow down the water, spread the water out, and hopefully catch soil to have like a wet area for more plants to grow. I did zuni bowls, that's pictured in the bottom right. And basically where there's like a head cut from a lot of water running down or a lot of erosion, I kind of dug back into the soil and put rocks in. And I got all these ideas from different books that I read. So as I was working my internship, my boss made me read books. So that was something new to me too. I was, expecting it to be summer, but I was still doing research and reading books during my internship. And then I also got to do some beaver mimicry. So one thing that we're looking forward to do on the ranch is hopefully have like bring beavers in because they can do a lot of great things for the environment. So basically what I did was I tried to build a beaver dam in place of beavers. And hopefully if they get reintroduced in the area, they have a place they want to go. But beavers can do a lot better job than I can. And I found out very quickly that they're very good at building dams and I am not. So that was one of those projects that I built and then had to take apart and rebuild another time just to make sure I got it right. And then I got to do some other things. So I like built fence or bridges for the truck and side by side to drive around on the ranch. And with that, I was using all scrap wood. So we run all electric fences and everything at the ranch. So part of my cleanup was cleaning up all the old fence posts and barbed wire and everything like that. So I repurposed and reused all that stuff to help build things on the ranch that weren't already there. And all the rocks too were all found on the ranch, so we never brought anything in, or anything like that. And then I got to do a couple other cool projects. One of the state biologists came out and worked with us on the ranch. And I got to do like a transect and, count like invasive weeds and everything like that. So I got to work with her and just learn more about how that works in Montana. And it was really cool to hear what she knew about, one region of the country, and then I got to talk to her about what I know about the Midwest and invasive species and all that other stuff. So I got to do a lot of super cool things, and I mean, it opened up a lot of opportunities for me in the future and just over the summer.
Sam, I gotta ask, then I'm gonna ask everybody, so how did you go about finding, this is a really different internship again, so what was your process like, and what was the process to obtain this internship?
So I got pretty lucky. The student that worked there the year prior, it's a really weird connection. So his mom was my aunt's roommate in college, and my aunt and uncle live in Montana. They live in Bozeman. So when he did the internship last summer, he lived with my aunt and uncle just because he kind of had that connection there. And then while he was working, my aunt reached out to me and she was like, "Hey, you should reach out to Matt, who's the owner of the ranch, and see if you can work for him in the coming summer." And so I gave him a call. I sent him some emails, gave him a call. We basically did an interview over the phone. And I mean, there was a couple interviews and stuff, and just to make sure that I was the right fit. And basically he said, "If you want the job is yours." And I was like, "I'm not passing this opportunity up." So I took it, but yeah, I mean, I found that it's all about having connections and knowing the right people. And fortunately for me, like, I mean, I have family that lives out there, but just knowing the right people and reaching out to those people can be a super great way to find internships and stuff like that, so.
Sam, questions?
Yeah.
Did you end up living with your own uncle then?
So I had two cousins that go to Montana State. So I lived with them at their like college house. So that was another really cool thing. I got to, they play football there. So I got to live in a house with like my two cousins and then like 5 or 6 other football guys. So that was pretty awesome too, because I had built-in friendships, and it was a pretty cool thing to be like hearing about their summers and their experiences, and then, yeah, so.
What were the bison like? Like, you had a picture, but
Yeah.
Did you have like much direct connection? Was it ever dangerous or anything like that?
I had one, on the first slide, I have a picture with them like right there. They're pretty chill, they're super curious, so when I was building these, this is when I was building the bridges for the truck to kind of just cross this small creek. And they were probably 500 yards away when I was down there working on the bridges, and like 2 minutes later, I looked up and they were standing on the hill looking at me. So then I got a little bit nervous, and one of them did like run down and charge me. But I had the truck close, so I just ran and jumped on the truck. But there is one who's she's an old heifer, and we call her old 440, because they all have ear tags, so they're all marked. And she's put a couple dents in the truck, but it was never, for me, it was never really that dangerous. It was cool because we got to move them to different pastures, so we do rotational grazing. So I got to move them around, and yeah, they're just super curious. They kind of do whatever they want to do, and you can't really get in their way because that's the other thing too. Like we didn't like ride horses around and push them to a new pasture. It was basically just open up the gates, and whenever they wanted to walk through, they wanted to walk through. Like some days it'd be like, all right, 15 minutes and they're in a new pasture, and other days it's like I'm there for 12 hours sitting there. When we had like getting across the road, it's like, all right, put up the cattle gates, and then now there's a car coming, so we have to move the cattle gates, and so that it it can be super easy, or it can be stressful and wondering if they're ever gonna move. Yeah.
Were you like working with other ranch hands or did you work alone?
No, so I was the only one. So another thing I did, besides, like the ranching aspect was on Mondays was his biggest like way that he makes money is his direct to consumer meat. So on Mondays, we would be packaging the meat and shipping it out. So there was another like part-time guy who helped package everything with me. And he was paid, I was unpaid for the summer, but he was paid, so he was only like a part-time worker. And he would come out to the ranch like once a week, but typically it was just me. And Sally, my boss's German Shepherd, we'd get to the ranch in the morning, go in, my boss would give me a map of what I needed to do. Yeah, Sally's in the bottom right here, sitting over my Zuni bowl. She was my foreman, for the summer. And, yeah, I go in, we'd talk to me about what I needed to do, we'd hop on the side by side and go out and get our projects done for the day.
Patty Rose next.
Okay, so I'm now, I'm a senior, and I did a summer agronomy internship at, at Nutrient Ag Solutions, which is located in Big Lake, but there's also like a bunch of locations all over the United States and in like Minnesota. And, we can go to the next one, sorry. And I kind of like, if you don't know like what agronomy is, it's like a branch of agriculture that deals with like field crop production and also soil management. So here are just some pictures of me. I've done this internship for 2 years, so I did it like sophomore, junior, and then junior, senior. And these are some of the people that I was like working with, Amanda and Dave. They were the other 2 interns my sophomore to junior year, and then I met like another person named Brian this past year. But we got to go like together to most of the fields and stuff, which was really nice to like have someone like there to like scout and stuff with. But if you go to the next slide, a kind of day to day, it was mostly like consistent, but I did like a lot of different things throughout the days. So a majority of my time was spent scouting different fields. I would go to like potato fields, alfalfa fields, corn and soybeans, like primarily. Sometimes I did like a little bit of like rye and like wheat, but there's not really much to do there with those fields in terms of scouting. But when I go like scout the fields, basically my supervisors would want me to like report on crop stages, like the weeds present, and like if I notice anything different with the plants, like deficiencies and stuff, and then like if there are like a ton of insects and stuff. And then usually when I go there, I do stand counts to like help calculate yields for them, because all the information I was like taking up, my supervisors they're like crop advisors, so they would report back to like the farmers on things that we're seeing and like kind of advise them on like certain pathways. And then another big part of my job was taking soil samples and like plant tissue samples. I would like collect them, and then we would bring them back and send them to like a different lab, and then we would like go over the results with the farmers. And then I did a lot of monitoring like pests. So we would have in corn, there's like corn borers and corn rootworm and earworms that are like big issues that farmers face. So we would set up traps and go monitor those like every day or like weekly in different fields. I like learned a lot of stuff throughout my internship, because like we only have one like agriculture class here with Joe, and for my first year I hadn't done anything ag related. So I was basically learning new things every single day. And like I learned how to like crop stage all the different plants and stuff, and like I learned a ton of weeds and like deficiencies and stuff, and like how to do different types of yield counts, because we did like stand counts, but then we also did it with like these little corns and like counting kernels and stuff, which was really cool. And then for alfalfa, when we were scouting it, we would like sweep out these big giant butterfly nets, and then we would like count the bugs and stuff, and I never knew that was even like a thing for my internship. But it was like really fun to learn just like a bunch of new things every single day, and like there was always things I was asking questions about, like finding new weeds, be like, what is this? So my supervisor like sent a picture, and they would always like be so helpful, so that was really fun. And then I also got to be a part of like some product trials. They were doing like some nutrient uptake and like stress mitigation products that they were like trialing. And one of them was this one called Black Max 22. And that's like a comparison of like two plants that I dug up. The south side was the one that like had the product, and the north side was one that didn't. So like the bigger root structure and stuff was like kind of what they were looking for when they were like trying to do it. But then there was like another one that I like dug up and stuff that like did not have any difference. So they're like they're not working. So then, but they found out that this one was working, so that was cool. And then I also got to attend like multiple company events. My first year, they did more like internship days where like we would go with all the interns in the state that were at like the different locations, and we would kind of get like basic training on like different weeds and like crop staging and stuff. And then like they would have really cool people come in who were like part of like precision ag with like drones, and they would like who have like drones that basically do our job and go and scout the fields from like above and like give analysis back to the farmers. And then also like for the sprayers, they had like a drone sprayer, which was kind of weird to watch because it was just like flying all over. But and then this past year, the meetings I went to, they didn't really have the internship days, but I got to go along to like company meetings where they would have like, there was a Syngenta seed meeting and then like a Vermont seed meeting, which are two like bigger seed companies. And basically trying to like promote their seeds to the people that I, or my supervisors, to sell to the farmers. And it was just cool to kind of like observe their day to day and like see how important like even like connection making in their job was. And like it was just super cool and a lot of fun. The company appreciation days, like sometimes the farmers would come, we would have like both the summers we had like a big get together where all like the farmers came and we had like a big barbecue and stuff. And so I got to talk to them. Some of them I would see like in the field and they would come out like in their truck with their dog and they'd be like, oh, here. And I'm like, oh, good. I hear the whole life story and it was fun talking to them, but I really liked it. And that's it.
So Addie, how did you come about even that first year? I'm guessing you had a leg up the second year when you were interested, but that first year, how did you come across this internship and what was the process like to obtain the position?
My mom is a big yapper and she was like, Addie needs an internship to like basically everyone that she knew. And she was just like at a bonfire one day and Missy is one of our like family friends and she works at Nutrient and she's like, oh, she should apply here. And like, we usually have a couple interns and they have a lot of fun in the summer. So like, okay, I'll do that. And then I applied online on like the Nutrient website and then I had an interview with Brad, who's like the supervisor at the Big Lake location, and talked to him for like 20-30 minutes and then he offered me the job. And then the second year I just like called him and was like, can I come back? And he said yes. So yeah.
Questions for Addie?
Interns are there between all the different locations, would you say? Or maybe just at the days?
Yeah, the first year of my internship, there was 4 of us, and then this past year, there was only 2 of us. But then when we go to like the internship days, I feel like they would have like 2 to 4 at each location, mostly. So like not a ton, but you always had like someone that you would like be with, so like that was nice.
So 2 to 4 at each Nutrient office kind of in?
Yeah.
Okay, so times, do you know how many offices there are across the state roughly?
I think there's probably like 5 or 6.
Okay.
So is their nutrients like hired by the farmers to monitor their fields? Is that how it works?
Yeah,
Do you know how much it costs?
I do not know. I don't really know like. But yeah. Some of them, like some of the farmers like would like hire them to have us do like the soil tests and like. tests. So like there were farmers that would go to their fields like a ton because they really like valued it. And then there were some farmers that would go like once a summer or something. They just like didn't choose to do it.
On to Brandon.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brandon Zimmer. I did my internship with the United States Army Corps of Engineers, Western Area Office in Fargo, North Dakota. And our main project was flood diversion and waterway management in the Fargo area. So for some background context, essentially every year the Red River floods into Fargo. The question is how bad is it going to be? Some years it's worse than others, depending on how quickly the ice thaws in Canada, because if there's too much ice in Canada, the river gets backed up and then it floods and everything like that, as well as precipitation and even snowfall in the Fargo area. Next slide, please. And so essentially there are two big sides that they focus on. They focus on civil and military engineering. And this was more of the civil side of engineering where I was. They manage a lot of the nation's navigable waters, construct flood risk management projects. They do dams, levees, ports, bridges, and they also work a lot with FEMA. And I think their last big disaster response was with the wildfires in Hawaii. Next slide. So I obtained my internship through the ROTC program here at St. John's. And so just because that's how I obtained my internship, that like you can still get an internship with them through other ways, right? The Corps of Engineers manages a lot of parks all around the US. And so it's just a matter of finding that park and seeing if they need help. And so essentially cadets from all over the nation were put in Fargo. It was a 4-week program and we were focusing on civil, mechanical, and environmental engineering. And what we did specifically in the Fargo office is we were shadowing quality assurance reps, working with project engineers. And then for me personally, I had a lot of military mentorship. So like we would basically have classes that were either geared around career guidance, like what the Corps does, and other things like that. And every day, I mean, like everybody else has said, every day is different. Some days we were in the office because it was raining and we were doing paperwork, and then other days we were actually out on the sites making sure that, quality was assured, to say the least. Next slide. And so, like I mentioned, the problem is flooding, and so this is their solution. So essentially, they are diverting the water physically around the city of Fargo. So they're building 2 sets of levees that go all around the Fargo area. And there are 3 tater gates. There's the Red River structure, the Wild Rice structure, and the DIS, diversion inlet structure. And so what happens is when the Red River floods, the Red River gate will close partway, or it will limit the flow of water through. And then they will open up the DIS and the Wild Rice. And so that will cause the water to be diverted around the city of Fargo. And then they will let it in back to the river on the northern side of the city. And so you can see on the left side, that's the flooding without the project. And then on the right side, that's the flooding with the project in place, fully operational. And so the big black line, kind of where the 3 structures are on the south side of Fargo, that's what's called the southern embankment. And essentially that's almost like a staging area for all the water, and basically just keeps the water back and allows them to help control the flow of water as they let it into the diversion inlet structure. Right now, I believe the Wild Rice and the diversion inlet structure are mostly complete. They're just waiting on some gear worms for the engines, I believe, in both of those. And then the Wild Rice, or not, excuse me, Red River structure is where we got to see a lot of the construction. On our first day, they actually lifted the big Tanner gates into place. And it's just really big and, they're very, very safety minded. They actually had to like set the gate down, readjust, reassess, do some math, and then re-tilt the gate back up into place so that they could weld it to the arms. Next slide, please. So in terms of environmental aspects, we studied a lot of soil contents. I got hands-on the plans. They're very, very open to letting interns work with the plans. And so I actually got to see all the engineering aspects of these projects. And so on the right side of that picture is boring notes. They're only boring if you find them boring. But essentially, it looks at all the different types of soil content within that boring measurement. And so found that essentially there's a lot of clay in Fargo area, and that can help them in some aspects of construction, but it can also hinder them. In terms of water management during the project, they're just allowing the rivers to flow normally. And then coffer dams are placed in bends of the river where the structures are. And so they're modifying the river bed. You can kind of see in the bottom left photo. They're modifying the river bed so that the flow of the river will actually go through the structure, and they'll put dams in those two spots to ensure that the river actually flows through the structure. Pollution prevention is really big with the Corps of Engineers. They're very mindful, especially with stormwater pollution prevention plans. And then they will uphold EPA regulations and standards. There's like a 1,000-page contract that goes with each one of these structures that ensures that these regulations are all met. And so everything is very meticulous when it comes to upholding contractors and following guidelines. And then turf establishment is also a really big thing for anybody in the 275 class in the fall. Talk a lot about native prairies. And so I was actually kind of a little bit of a nerd when it came to that. Like they all were asking me a lot about native prairies and the impact that that can have on turf. I was able to remember my grasses, and so that was also some bonus points there. And we talked a lot about noxious weed control and how that can negatively impact sites. Next slide, please. And then this was one of my favorite days. We actually got to meet with the GIS and GPS people from the St. Paul district. So in terms of like the structuring of it, there's the St. Paul district in St. Paul, but then there's eastern and western area offices, and I was in the western office in Fargo. And so basically, we were on a Zoom call for about an hour and a half, and they were talking to us all about the GIS capabilities that they have with the Corps of Engineers. And what's really cool is the software that Gene teaches in the GIS class is the same software that they use. So that was something that was really applicable. We're like, hey, I knew a lot about this, and I was able to kind of give some guidance to some of the project engineers of, hey, this is one way that you could use this software. This is one way you can analyze the data of sites. And in turn, I also learned there's some really cool like apps and stuff that you can put on your phone that will live time add data to your maps. So that was really cool to look at. And then we also looked at GPS features as well. There's a sergeant there that I met who his MOS is a 12 Tango, which is a geospatial engineer. So he did a lot of GIS. It's just more of kind of like what's under the ground and looking at that. So that was really cool to talk with him too, and kind of compare and contrast the softwares that we use and the skills that we have. And then, like I said, the applications go down to surveying, data analyzation, and disseminating information to the public. Next slide. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
If you want to talk about any of the pictures that are on here.
Yeah, so the picture on the far left was a PT session. So at least for me, because this was like with RTC, PT was one of those expectations where 3 days a week, I'd wake up early and we go exercise. Some days PT was pretty hard and other days it was not. Today it was like a squad competition based PT session, and the Master Sergeant Jackson, he tied a rope to the hitch of his truck and we pulled it. That was one of the things that we did. So The middle photo is the Red River structure, that's the one that's still under construction, so you can kind of tell, it really doesn't do it justice, in my opinion, how big the structure truly is. There's actually 3 gates, I believe, on the Red River structure, and you're kind of looking at one right now. And you can kind of see, really just how much it takes to lift, this gate in place and to do it safely. And then the top right photo is the diversion inlet structure. That's what the structure looks like when it's mostly complete. So the gates are actually not like super far up and open all the way. Typically, they're partially closed and then they will close partially, but they'll never fully close because that's just not good for the hydrology of the river and everything like that. And then the middle photo on the right side is also the Red River structure. That's just a different angle of the gate being lifted up. And then the bottom right was that turf inspection day where I got quizzed unbeknownst on my grasses and everything like that and how they impact the site.
So Brandon, how did you come about finding this position again through the ROTC here? Or if someone is not an ROTC member, how could another like a civilian maybe find these types of positions? What's that process like?
Yeah, so for me personally, my cadre, they were like, my instructors, they said, hey, internship applications are open, like this is a really good thing to do. You pick your top 3. I picked the engineering internship program. It's typically not a very popular one, but I knew that it would most likely correlate with the environmental studies department. And so, filled out like just some basic info, wrote a couple essays. I did not have to interview, but that's kind of like what the essays were in place of. And then also obtained letters of recommendation from professors and my cadre and submitted a big whole packet. Now, if somebody else were gonna go about it on the civilian side, I would say either go directly to like one of the area offices or find a park. Like I mentioned, they manage hundreds of parks across the US and you will find one that you will like. We went to Lake Ashtabula one day and we met some of the park rangers there and their job was like really cool, super chill, just kind of taking care of the park, making sure that everything was good. And they were really nice people, but that would definitely be a less construction oriented option that the Corps of Engineers offers. Hopefully that kind of helps answer the question.
Questions for Brandon? No GIS.
No GIS questions. I mean, I'm interested in, do you think civil engineering is something you might like to do?
You know, I have been thinking about it and I think I really like being out on the sites, but a lot of that construction management is so. It's just interesting to me, I guess. And not to mention, like I have to go out and get an engineering degree on top of it, so that would probably have to be like a master's or a PhD. And so that would just be more time in education. I'm definitely considering it, like it's not out of the option, but the Corps of Engineers is what's called broadening assignment. So there's like 2 types of assignments, there's key development, there's broadening assignments. And the Corps of Engineers falls under broadening assignments, and so I could go work for the Corps for like 3 years, and that's what I'd be doing is kind of stuff like this, construction management and quality assurance and stuff like that.
Last panelist?
Okay, so my name is also Addie. And I interned for the House of Representatives here in Minnesota. So my internship was not like any of the other internships. I worked a very like administrative job. So I am a political science minor and got really interested in that environmental policy, agricultural policy type of like wheelhouse. So I actually started with the DC summer internship program that is put on by political science. They start kind of in the fall and they're like, hey, start thinking of like ideas for the spring, which is really helpful for me. Because I kind of didn't like finding environmental studies is something internship is something I felt I could have done, but trying to like merge the two was something I was a little like, I'm not entirely sure how to do that. So I did the program, it was really, really awesome. I had a faculty and then an upperclassman and student advisor who would meet with me, like weekly, to talk about, hey, like, where have you been applying? Like, what are you interested in? Any way that I can help you, which was so helpful, especially like since this process can be like kind of daunting. They also connected me with an alum, who works on the Hill in DC. And I got to talk with someone who works for, the USDA International Affairs, sector, who was an alum of St. Ben. So that was really cool. Christy was great. But then they also helped me like draft my resume, put my cover letters together, get my letters of recommendation. They proofread everything. They like helped me like find accommodations out in DC, even though I didn't end up there. They like helped me do all that, which was super helpful. So I applied to 35 internships. I heard back from 2. And then it was like April, and I'm starting to freak out at this point because I am supposed to graduate in 8 weeks now. So I was like, I need an internship to graduate. Like I'm starting to lose my mind. And then I get an email from one of my professors who an alum reached out to who works for, that is Congresswoman Angie Craig of Minnesota, like the congressional district MNO2. She's hilarious. She's a hoot. So they like, Sydney Richter like emailed one of our professors and says, hey, we have a job open, like we have an internship open, like you should have someone apply to it. So Angie, because of the demographics of her district, is actually on the Committee of Agriculture and the Committee of Energy and Commerce in the House, which was super, super interesting to me because she does a lot of stuff on like the Farm Bill and like broadband and energy and like rural development, which I thought was super, super cool. So I applied and went through a terrible interview process. My first question was, what was your favorite piece of legislation published under the 118th congressional session? That was my opening question. But like I got through the interview, like I felt like I did okay. I went through 2 more rounds of interviews after that, and was offered the job 2 weeks before the semester ended. And so instantly I get the call, I'm like, yep, like I'm ready, like let's do it, like it's gonna be great. And it was. So I also just kind of a plug for like young students. I also participated in summer leadership fellows through XPD, which kind of, again, like in addition to the DC summer program, provides you with that mentorship aspect and like helping you get through all of the different pieces. But then they also provide you with financial assistance. So a lot of like people up here said that their internships weren't paid. And for me, that wasn't necessarily an option. I couldn't afford that. So I was able to, work. I sent in an application and said, hey, like I can't do the DC program unless I have financial assistance. And they were super, super awesome about it and like set me up and got me all sorted away. And like it was really, really helpful. And in the end, I was able to make it work. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so what I did for my internship, like I said, I worked a very like administrative job. So I'll kind of like breeze through a lot of this. So I worked directly with constituents every day. I would answer the phones, I would answer emails. I was given my own set of casework files, which casework basically means that like if a person who lives in my district is like, I haven't gotten my mail in 3 weeks and the USPS isn't helping me. I'll be like, hey, let me help you like figure this out. So then we like communicate with each other and try to get that fixed. And so I did stuff like that. I worked with immigration, so the United States Center for Immigration Services. I worked with the Department of State. I worked with the Internal Revenue Service, which was actually my favorite, ironically enough. USPS and then Department of Education, as well as like Department of Agriculture, which obviously was also another one of my favorites. So yeah, that was kind of my day-to-day, was engaging with people. I found I really, really liked it. There was a very routine aspect, but there was also like, I would like meet with people and like talk with, you know, older people who are having issues with like their Medicaid or their Social Security or stuff like that. And again, I had no knowledge of this going in, but I learned to pick it up really, really fast and had actually a good time. In addition to that, I also got to work on like specific projects. So because I have an agriculture background, I actually got to go with Angie to like our day in the district and go to like my hometown and meet with like the commissioner and like the board of like the LeSueur County like board of commissioners and talk with them about stuff, and like they knew my parents' name, which is hilarious, and got to work with them on like trying to, you know, fulfill the needs that they needed from Congresswomen. I also got to like write letters updating them on like our agriculture like aspirations, because while I was in office, the Farm Bill was like killing us. So yeah, I got to kind of sit on some meetings for that, which was so cool. And then, yeah, I updated our grant database, so that was a lot of like infrastructure pieces, to see if we like received those, the like nitty-gritty details. Let's see what else did I do. And then I wasn't supposed to be allowed to do this, but I like asked, and if you ask, you know, like it's a 50% chance they'll tell you yes. So I actually got to attend a meeting with a whole bunch of people from like environmental agricultural organizations from across the state, to a panel with the Secretary of Agriculture. So I got to like see like Vilsack and like Congress Craig and Congresswoman Betty McCollum, and both the senators were there, and then it was like the president of Minnesota corn and the president of Minnesota soybeans, and Delta was there. It was so cool. I was like, I am so like over my head right now. And I was by far, like, I'm like 20 years everybody's like junior. It was awesome. And like listen to that. And so I got to attend cool events like that, that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of touched on that while I was rambling. Like I said, she's in the 2 different committees, and then there's different aspects of those as well. So you can click again. Okay, yeah, that's it.
So I just have, you already answered the how you found your internship, so I have a quick question. I'm gonna start this with you, but I'd actually like to pose it across the panel and you can all write it down. Just curious, it sounds like you're really enthusiastic about your daddy. So how did your internship experience connect or not to a planned career path? So do you see yourself doing more of this?
Yeah, I love like environmental like politics and like how that works, and I think it's super, super interesting. It's a career that I'm definitely looking into moving forward. So this has definitely put my foot in the door more than I would have ever thought. While I was doing my internship, I was meeting, so my internship was like 8 weeks, 10 weeks long, give or take. And every week I would meet with 1 to 2 people who either were connected with the Craig office, or we had an agriculture specialist in our DC office, but we also had an ag specialist in our district office where I was working. And so like I was like, hey, like let me know if you have anybody who you think would like be interesting for me to talk to. And like I'm trying to figure out like where I might fit in like this, you know, big puzzle of things. And so I was connecting with like a ton of people. Like now I have like a ton of contacts, and it was super interesting. I'm also considering law school. So I met with like through the SLF program, I met with 3 different Betty Johnny law students. who are either currently in the program or have graduated from the program. So like they really encouraged me to like, yes, you have your work, but also like do what you need to do in order to like get your hands dirty and like enjoy what you're doing. So yeah, that was super, super awesome. It's great.
Plan, align with your plan of career path.
I can go next. Going into it, I didn't really know anything about agriculture, and that's kind of why I wanted to try out Nutrien. Nutrien's like an ag supply like retailer, and I don't think that, like, I think after working there, I don't think that I would go into ag sales like in the future. But I am interested in like the field of agriculture, so potentially finding something that's like related to that, because I really did like enjoy learning all about like the crops and like soil nutrients and like stuff like that. So yeah, it was a good experience.
I feel just about as undecided as I was when I came into the internship. But when I was starting my internship, I was given the option to basically do a specialty the entire time. So I could either do GIS all day, every day for weeks, or I could do what I ended up doing and talk to everyone I could and learn about everyone's different jobs and go and do different things whenever I wanted to and kind of make my own schedules and be flexible. And so I don't know, I haven't decided yet, but when I do make my decision, it will be more informed than it would have been before my internship.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on it earlier where like the Corps of Engineers is one of those assignments. It's called broadening time, and definitely keeping it into consideration. Like that would just definitely probably be more of like, if I do go active duty, then you know, that would be one of those options that I would keep in mind. So I think at some point I'll probably do a couple of years with the Corps of Engineers, but in terms of making it a whole career, probably not. But it is just experience at the end of the day, and it's good experience.
For me, with my working on a ranch, it was kind of just one of those things that was like a dream come true. To be able to be out in Montana and play cowboy for a summer. And I would love to do it for the rest of my life, but I gotta go make a little bit of money and buy some land before I can do that. So in my future, not really, that probably isn't the exact career path I would go down, but I could definitely see myself working with ranchers and working for those people that are working the land. And if I go make enough money and do that, and I get to go buy land in Montana, I probably will. So, yeah.
I got a quick question that anyone could answer, but I'm curious, like, what did you experience or see in terms of like the part of work that excited you? Were like, yeah, this is something I really want to do, like being outside or like being behind a desk or talking to people. Like, what aspect of like the daily life of the work that you saw are you excited about?
I can go on that. So, one thing that was really cool for me was the ranch that I was working on is a family ranch. So, like my boss, Matt, and his wife, they own the ranch and they raise their 2 kids on the ranch. So everything they do is so they can survive and live. So the coolest thing that I saw was like, you're not just like working for somebody else. You're not working, to, you know, make all this money. You're working for yourself. You're doing what you need to do to, make ends meet. And I thought that was super cool because like, he does all different things. He sits behind the desk and answers emails, but then he goes out, like his day is never finished. And even when he's sleeping at night, he's still working. So I thought that was like a super rewarding thing to like be a part of, was like work doesn't just end for him when you go home. Like it's not a desk job or anything like that. You're not like, okay, I'm in the car driving home. Like you're still, he's working all the time. So I thought that was like a super cool thing to like experience and be a part of too.
I would say one really exciting thing was just being out on the sites. You know, some days it was really nice out and other days it was not. And so I think kind of listening to contractors kind of explain what they're doing and why they're doing it, and understanding what the end result of the projects will be and the good that they'll do. I mean, like Sam said, it's just a very rewarding thing, and so I think if you can kind of see that reward, I think you can find that at anywhere really, but, just making sure that as long as you're happy with what you're doing, that's the big thing.
On my first day of my internship, I was petrified because I'm an environmental studies person by like nature and trade and temperament, I think. And I walk into that office and it's like suits and I'm like, oh hell. And then I got on the phone and talked to like our ag guy, our ag guy for our district office. And it was like, okay, like I know exactly where I'm at. Like he talked like he is a farmer, he farms, like that's what he does. And then he does like ag stuff for Angie or Congresswoman Craig on the side. And so we just like talked for over an hour about like all this stuff. And he's like, oh my God, I did this research on a couple of plots of my land last year. I should send it to you. I think you'd find it really interesting. And we just geeked like the entire time. It was awesome. And I was like, that's what I want to do for the rest of
I really liked, I was outside like a ton, rain or shine, I was out there. And like, it was fun working with the other interns, but then also my supervisors, they're all like in their thirties-ish age, and so they were all like super fun to be with and stuff, and just kind of like see that the like friendships and relationships they had with each other in like the workplace was like overall really positive, and I hope to find a place like that in the future too.
I really like the flexibility of my job. Even when I stayed with certain people, I could tell that they were doing random things or different things every day. Another thing I liked is, at least for my internship, I was outside maybe 4 times. So I got to go outside and go on hikes and learn stuff and go to meetings, but then I'd also be inside sometimes in meetings, learning stuff, talking to people and doing work from inside. I think what I learned is that I like a hybrid. So I go outside sometimes, but not every day.
Any other, yeah,
So Brandon, you sort of talked about this a little bit, but did you guys find, like you guys, Addie are closer to graduating. So did you guys feel that you were prepared and that the things that you had learned in your environmental studies classes were applicable? And then Molly, especially, you had only taken like 2 classes because you were correct. You had taken 150, 170, and then did your internship. Or had you taken more?
No, I'd taken a good amount more.
A good amount?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So did you guys feel like your classes were applicable and that you were prepared for what you were getting into?
Yeah, go ahead.
Anything more.
Mine, like, it was in aspects of it, but also I learned like a lot through it too. So like 175, like skills we learned of like plant IDing, I used a lot like just in different forms of plants. Like I would still use like a booklet and like I'd be like, okay, what is this? And then have to do that and report back. Or like when we did like soil samples, it's like the same, they using the probe and stuff and like collecting it in bags, we did the same thing. And then use maps a lot for like GIS, with helping with that. And sustainable ag cause I had my internship before and after, so after I did sustainable ag, I was like, oh my gosh, I know more stuff now, and I'm like, so that also applied. So I think overall, yes, I was prepared, but that it's also a good opportunity to learn more.
Yeah, to that nature, I definitely think that my environmental studies classes prepared me. I've come to the consensus that nothing compares or prepares you for casework. Because angry people are angry people. So little more background on that. I was working for the Congresswoman when like she asked Biden to step down. And then there was the attempted Trump assassination. And then Biden stepped down. And then Harris took up the nomination, and then Walz was like selected as the VP. So in that time, like it was just like it was like every 2 weeks, I was just getting hit with like a new wave of chaos. And like it was very learn on my feet. Like it sounds so scary and I don't want to say this, but I can get at like I had to go in lockdown for like a week and a half after the attempted Trump assassination. So I had to work from home, which was kind of crazy, but I mean like
I was like, this, it keeps things interesting, I guess. But like, when it came down to agriculture stuff and environment stuff, I always felt like I'm like, okay, yeah, I know what's going on. And then like, I felt like everybody in the office, like, Addie, this is why you're here. And I'm like, yes, this is why I'm here. So like, yeah, I felt like it did a good job.
I also think it did a pretty good job. I'd say, a lot of my classes gave brief information, and then at my internship, it went more in depth. Plant tagging somewhat different plants, but it helped. I knew what to do and how to recognize things. A lot from sustainable ag, actually, because after fires, they'd have to go and do soil testing and make sure everything was good. And also 275, because there were a lot of endangered and invasive species, and they do engineering stuff to help control them, and they use JS to make sure they were staying away from endangered species when they were spraying for fires and all sorts of stuff.
I'd say like a lot of general knowledge, if you will, just like I was able, when things were talked about, I was able to like relate to them in my own way and like the things I've learned, but also what I've learned is like nothing will prepare you for what you need to know about that specific job. So when I was doing these different environmental projects, like I said, I was reading books about them, learning more about how to do these different projects. So having that background knowledge and being able to like relate to different things was super nice, but also like with every job, you're always learning. And even if I, like worked on the ranch in Montana and then worked on a ranch in North Dakota, like I'm still gonna have to learn more because that ranch is different, or so you're always learning more about your job and what your job is. But having that background knowledge is like so crucial to like being able to obtain the new knowledge as well.
I think we're out of time, and I just want to respect everyone's time, so we're going to give our panelists a round of applause again. And thank you.